You saved my tribe. Now, I give you my daughter as a wife," spoke the Apache elder. The sun had barely risen above the distant hills when a lone figure appeared on the dusty trail. He was a young man, traveling alone, with nothing but a worn backpack and a rifle slung over his shoulder. His clothes were dusty and torn from the long journey through the plains, and his face bore the marks of fatigue and sunburn. Yet, in his eyes, there was determination. He had been moving for days, with no clear destination, guided only by the stars at night, in the hope that he could survive whatever challenges the wilderness might throw at him. As he walked, he noticed signs of movement ahead, small footprints in the soft, carefully pressed into the soft earth. The tracks were not those of animals, but of people. He slowed his pace and crouched behind a low rock, peering carefully. He could see smoke rising in the distance, curling gently into the morning sky. That smoke meant a settlement, perhaps a small village, but he knew better than to assume safety too quickly. In these lands, people were wary of strangers, and strangers were often treated with suspicion. He remembered the warnings he had heard in distant towns. If you enter the lands of the Apache, respect their ways. They do not welcome outsiders lightly. Any harm or dishonor may bring deadly consequences. He swallowed hard and adjusted his pack, trying to steady his nerves. He was not here to fight or steal. He simply needed water, food, and shelter for the night. But even with that in mind, he could not ignore the weight of being an outsider in a world that moved by its own rules. As he approached the settlement, he noticed the careful arrangement of the huts. Each one was low to the ground, made of sturdy wooden frames and covered with woven mats. Smoke rose from the cooking fires, and the faint sound of voices reached him. Quiet, controlled, cautious. Birds chirped in the distance, and the wind rustled through the tall grass, carrying the scent of earth and dry wood. Everything seemed still, yet alive, as if the land itself was watching him. He stepped lightly, careful to make no sudden noise. A young boy appeared near the edge of the settlement, carrying a bundle of firewood. The boy froze when he saw him, eyes wide with surprise. The stranger raised his hands in a gesture of peace, offering a small smile. The boy hesitated, but then, perhaps sensing no threat, went back to his task, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Soon, the stranger reached the center of the settlement. Here the elder lived, a man who carried the weight of the tribe on his shoulders. He was tall, with silver streaks in his hair and deep lines etched into his face from years of responsibility. He watched the newcomer with calm eyes, seeing everything before speaking. Around him, other members of the tribe paused in their daily routines, curious but cautious. The stranger bowed his head slightly, speaking in a careful, respectful tone.
"I mean no harm. I am a traveler and need rest for the night."
His voice was calm, but he could sense the tension in the air. The tribe members exchanged glances, whispering to one another in their language. The elder raised a hand, signaling them to be still. He walked forward slowly, measuring the stranger's movements, his eyes sharp and thoughtful. "Why have you come here?" the elder asked finally, his voice steady but carrying authority. There was no anger, only curiosity mixed with caution. The stranger explained his journey briefly, speaking of dangers on the trail, of hostile bands he had narrowly escaped, and of the need to find water and shelter. He spoke honestly, without exaggeration, hoping his words would carry the weight of truth. The elder listened carefully, studying the man. In a world where many lied to protect themselves or to gain advantage, honesty was rare and precious. He noted the stranger's posture, his tone, and the sincerity in his eyes. After a long moment of silence, he nodded slightly. "You may stay for a short time," he said. "But remember, our land is not yours. Respect our ways, and you will find kindness here. Show disrespect, and you will find none." Relief washed over the stranger, and he bowed again in gratitude. He was led to a small hut on the edge of the settlement, where he could rest and refresh himself. Inside he found simple bedding and a small bowl of water. It was not much, but it was enough to restore his strength. He drank slowly, savoring the coolness, and allowed himself a moment to breathe. Over the next few hours he observed the tribe quietly. He noticed how they worked together, each person playing a role in the community. Some gathered water from a nearby stream, while others tended to crops or prepared food. Children played cautiously near the edge of the settlement, under the watchful eyes of their parents. There was a rhythm to their lives, a careful balance between survival and cooperation. At one point he heard a cry. A young child had wandered too close to the stream and slipped. Without thinking, he rushed forward, grabbing the child before it could fall completely into the water. The child's mother ran to him, her face a mix of fear and relief. The stranger returned the child safely, bowing his head in respect. The elder, who had observed from a distance, stepped forward and nodded. There was approval in his eyes, tempered by the cautious nature of a man who had seen too much. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the stranger joined the tribe around a large fire. The elder spoke to him quietly, teaching him some of the rules and customs. They spoke of respect, of the importance of family, and of the dangers that lay beyond their lands. The stranger listened attentively, absorbing every word. He knew that to survive here he could not act like an outsider. He had to learn, adapt, and respect the ways of the people who had lived on this land for generations. The night grew deep, and the stars emerged, scattered across the sky like diamonds. The stranger lay on the simple bedding in his hut, thinking of the day's events. He felt a strange sense of connection with the tribe. They had accepted him cautiously but sincerely, and he had earned a small measure of their trust. For the first time in many days he felt a sense of hope. Perhaps he could survive this land, not just as a traveler but as someone who belonged, even if only a little. In the days that followed he helped where he could. He repaired a broken fence, fetched water, and even shared knowledge he had of the land beyond the hills. How to track animals, how to find water in dry places, how to avoid dangers that might come from the outside world. The tribe watched him carefully, sometimes whispering among themselves, sometimes nodding in approval. Slowly, he became more than a stranger. He became a helper, a protector, someone who could be trusted in small but important ways. The elder observed all of this in silence, weighing each action. He was a man who had seen many travelers come and go, many claiming friendship only to bring harm. But this young man was different. There was courage in his actions, humility in his demeanor, and respect in his words. The elder could see that he had the qualities of someone who could be a true ally, not just for a day or a week, but for the times when danger might strike. One morning, the tribe awoke to the distant sound of drums. It was a signal, a warning that another group was approaching, one that often brought trouble. The stranger's heart quickened, but he stayed calm, observing the preparations around him. The tribe moved with precision and coordination, readying themselves for whatever might come. And the elder, looking at the young man, gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement that he trusted him to act wisely, even in the face of danger. That moment marked a turning point. The stranger was no longer merely someone passing through. He was part of the tribe's story, at least in that moment. And as he watched the sun rise over the plains, casting golden light on the huts and the people who had welcomed him, he felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had been given a chance, a place among people who could have easily turned him away. And he knew that to honor that trust, he had to be brave, wise, and loyal, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The days following the stranger's arrival passed quietly at first, with the tribe moving through their routines like a river flowing smoothly over stones. Children played near the huts. Women prepared food and gathered herbs, and men checked the fences and tended to the few animals they kept. Yet there was a subtle tension in the air, a sense of watchfulness that came from living in a land where dangers could appear without warning. The elder had taught the stranger to notice these signs, to read the land as if it were speaking to them. Every bird call, every distant crack of a branch, every drift of smoke could carry meaning. One afternoon, while the stranger helped mend a broken section of the wooden fence near the edge of the settlement, he noticed something unusual. Far across the plains, a faint dust cloud rose near the horizon. At first, he thought it might be a group of travelers or hunters. But as he watched more closely, the movement seemed deliberate, measured, and fast. Something in his experience told him that this was no ordinary passage. He wiped his brow and ran to the elder, pointing toward the distant cloud. The elder's eyes narrowed, his face calm but serious. He walked to the edge of the settlement and squinted toward the horizon. "Raiders," he said softly, more to himself than to the stranger. "They have been watching. They will come tonight." He turned to the stranger, his gaze piercing. "You see now why we live as we do. Every day is careful. Every action matters. You have come at a dangerous time." The stranger nodded. He had faced danger before, but never had he encountered a situation like this, where an entire community depended on readiness, courage, and careful strategy. He could see the tension ripple through the tribe. Some of the men began checking weapons and preparing defensive measures. Women and children were quietly moved to safer areas within the settlement. There was no panic, only focused preparation, a calm that came from years of experience. The elder called a meeting in the center of the settlement. He spoke to the tribe with calm authority, outlining what they would do if the raiders attacked. Then he turned to the stranger. "You know the land beyond us better than most outsiders. Can you help us?" The stranger stepped forward cautiously. "I have watched the patterns of the plains," he said. "They will move fastest through the dry creek bed to the east. If we position ourselves there, we can see them coming and prepare without being seen. We can use the terrain to our advantage." Some of the men hesitated. Outsiders were often wrong, and misjudgments could cost lives. But the elder's eyes reflected trust, and slowly the men agreed to follow the stranger's advice. Together they worked to create simple, effective defenses, hidden watch points, small barriers to slow movement, and signals to warn the settlement if the raiders came closer. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the dust cloud drew nearer. The stranger positioned himself with the elder and a few of the bravest hunters on a ridge overlooking the plain. From this vantage point, they could see the raiders clearly, roughly 20 men on horseback, moving swiftly and with purpose. The stranger whispered instructions, showing the men where to take cover and how to remain silent until the right moment. Every movement was careful, every sound measured. Night fell, and with it came a tense stillness. The settlement lay in darkness, the only light coming from small fires hidden near the huts. The raiders approached, unaware that the tribe could see them from above. The stranger's heart raced, but his hands remained steady. He reminded himself that panic could ruin everything. He focused on what he had observed: their direction, their speed, their pattern. Suddenly, one of the raiders spotted movement in the distance and slowed, peering toward the ridge. The stranger held his breath, signaling the hunters to stay still. After a tense moment, the raider shrugged and continued. A wave of relief passed through him, but he knew the danger was far from over. The first raider reached the edge of the settlement just as the tribe began to act. From hidden positions, the hunters made noise, clapping hands, throwing small stones, and creating shadows that suggested more defenders than there actually were. The raiders hesitated, uncertain of what they faced. The stranger moved quickly, calling out signals to the men, guiding them without exposing themselves. A few raiders tried to approach the huts directly, but the tribe had prepared traps, simple but effective barriers made of wood and rope. The raiders stumbled, and the element of surprise gave the tribe an advantage. The stranger leaped into action when a young boy ran too close to the path of a stumbling raider. He pulled the child back to safety, his hands steady despite the chaos. The boy's mother clutched him tightly, tears of relief glistening in her eyes. The raiders, frustrated and cautious, realized they could not easily penetrate the settlement. The stranger suggested a clever maneuver. "We make them think the settlement is stronger than it is. We move quietly and make noise in different areas so they cannot tell where we are," he said. The men followed his instructions, moving silently from shadow to shadow, creating sounds that echoed across the plain. Hours passed like this, each moment stretching longer than the last. The stranger noticed the exhaustion on the faces of the tribe members, but also the determination. They were not simply defending property, they were protecting family, children, and the life they had built here. In that moment, he felt a deep respect for them. He had faced danger alone before, but here, he was part of something bigger. Every person mattered, and every decision carried weight. Finally, just as the moon reached its highest point, the raiders decided the settlement was too well defended. Frustrated and wary of being trapped, they withdrew, their dust cloud shrinking back toward the horizon. The tribe watched silently until the last of them disappeared into the night. Then, slowly, the tension lifted. Hushed whispers of relief filled the air, and the elder finally spoke, his voice quiet but full of approval. "You have done well," he said, placing a hand on the stranger's shoulder. "Not just with your strength, but with your wisdom. You saw what others could not see. You acted when others might have frozen. You have saved us." The stranger shook his head.
I only did what I could. I could not have done it without all of you working together.
The elder smiled, a rare warmth crossing his weathered face. "Perhaps," he said, "but courage and wisdom are as valuable as numbers. You have shown both." That night the tribe gathered around the fire to celebrate quietly. There was no loud feast, only the sharing of food, stories, and laughter. The stranger sat among them, feeling a sense of belonging he had never known. Children approached him cautiously, curious about the one who had helped save them. He answered their questions with patience, showing them small tricks and gestures that made them giggle. The elder watched silently from a distance, noting the way the stranger interacted with the people. He had seen bravery in action, but he also saw humility, patience, and respect. These were qualities that mattered more than skill with weapons or knowledge of the land. The elder knew that this young man could become part of their story, not just as someone who arrived and left, but as someone who truly belonged. Over the next few days, the tribe began to treat the stranger not as an outsider, but as an ally. He helped with daily tasks, repaired what was broken, and offered advice when asked. The children followed him curiously. The women spoke to him with cautious friendliness, and the men exchanged nods of respect. He was still careful to honor the customs and traditions of the tribe, remembering the elder's guidance and the lessons of patience and respect. One morning the elder called him aside. "You have shown yourself in action and in word," he said. "You have helped us when we were in danger. You have shown courage and honor. For that, you are not just a stranger here. You are a friend. Perhaps one day, you may be more than that." The stranger bowed his head, unsure how to respond. He felt a mixture of pride, gratitude, and humility. He had never expected such trust or honor, and he knew it was not something to be taken lightly. The elder's words were a recognition of something deeper than mere survival. They were a recognition of character, of heart. From that day forward, the stranger's presence became a quiet but steady part of life in the settlement. He was no longer just a traveler passing through. He was a protector, a helper, and someone who had earned the trust of people who valued courage, wisdom, and respect above all else. And though danger still lingered beyond the hills, he knew that he had found a place where he could stand with others, facing the world together, ready for whatever might come next. The days following the raiders' retreat were calm but filled with quiet reflection. The tribe moved through their routines with a renewed sense of safety, but also with gratitude and awareness of how close danger had come. The stranger worked alongside them, repairing fences, helping with water, and learning more about the land, the plants, and the animals. With each passing day, he understood the rhythm of the tribe's life and the delicate balance they maintained between survival and harmony. The elder watched him closely. In every action, he saw honesty, humility, and respect. The stranger did not just help out of fear or obligation. He acted because he genuinely cared for the people he had saved. He treated children kindly, spoke politely to the women, and shared his knowledge without arrogance. Even the men, who had initially been skeptical, nodded in silent approval whenever he offered advice or assistance. One morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in soft oranges and pinks, the elder called the stranger to his side. They walked together toward a quiet spot on the edge of the settlement, where the land rolled gently into hills dotted with sagebrush and wildflowers. The air was crisp, and the distant sound of a creek filled the silence between them. The elder's steps were slow, measured, but there was purpose in his movement. "You have shown courage beyond what most outsiders could," the elder began, his voice calm and deep. You did not hesitate when danger came. You acted not for glory, but for life. That is rare. That is precious. And that is why I speak now. The stranger stopped, sensing the weight of the moment. He looked at the elder, seeing the wisdom and experience etched into the lines of his face. I am honored, sir, he said quietly. I only did what anyone would do in my place. I could not have done it without your guidance and the strength of your people. The elder nodded. True. Yet, your actions have changed more than one life. You have saved our children, our hunters, our families. You have earned trust that is not given lightly. You have become part of our story even though you came as a stranger. They walked a little further, stopping near a large boulder that overlooked the settlement. From there, the stranger could see the huts, the children playing cautiously, the women tending fires, and the men moving with quiet purpose. Everything seemed peaceful, yet he could sense the vigilance that remained beneath the surface, a constant awareness of the world beyond. The elder turned to him, his eyes serious but warm. There is something I must offer you. Not lightly, not casually, something that carries responsibility, respect, and honor. You have proven yourself worthy, and for that, I will give you a gift that binds you not only to me, but to all who live here. The stranger's heart quickened. He had expected gratitude, perhaps praise, but not this. He looked at the elder, waiting, unsure of what words could match the gravity of the moment. You have saved my tribe, the elder said slowly, deliberately. Now I give you my daughter as a wife. The words hung in the air like a striking bell, reverberating through the stranger's mind. He felt a rush of emotion, honor, surprise, and humility. This was a profound gesture, one that carried centuries of cultural meaning. Marriage in this tribe was not a simple contract or agreement. It was a bond of trust, respect, and shared life. It was a connection that carried the hopes of families, the safety of the tribe, and the strength of community. The stranger lowered his head, unsure how to respond. He had not come seeking such a gift, yet he could not deny the honor. I am humbled, he said finally. I do not take this lightly. I will respect your daughter, your family, and your tribe. I will do my best to honor this gift in every way. The elder studied him, searching his face for honesty. He saw no arrogance, no fear, only sincerity. Good, he said, finally allowing a small smile. You have learned that respect is more important than strength, and patience more important than speed. You have shown both. My daughter is wise, gentle, and strong. She will teach you the ways of our people, and you will share your own knowledge in return. Together, you will grow, and the bond will be more than simple words. The stranger's mind raced with questions, yet he knew the time was not for doubts. He nodded, accepting the elder's words with deep reverence. I will do all I can, he said quietly. At that moment, the daughter herself appeared. She had been observing from a distance, curious about the stranger who had saved her tribe. Her eyes were cautious but open, her expression thoughtful. She stepped forward slowly, stopping a few feet from him. There was no fear in her gaze, only interest and a quiet strength. The elder spoke to her gently. This man has shown courage, wisdom, and honor. He has acted not for himself, but for all of us. I give him to you, as one who will walk with you, learn with you, and protect with you. The daughter studied the stranger carefully. She had heard of his deeds, seen his actions, and felt the gratitude of her people. Yet she knew that respect and connection could not be forced. She nodded slowly. I will watch him, she said softly. I will learn if his heart is true. But I see the courage in his eyes. That is the first step. The stranger bowed his head, humbled by her words. I will do nothing to dishonor you, he said. I will learn, and I will follow your guidance. Together we can face whatever comes. For several moments they stood silently, each aware of the importance of this moment. The elder's gaze softened, knowing that the first step toward unity had been taken. The daughter's cautious trust and the stranger's willingness to learn and respect were signs that this bond could grow into something strong and lasting. Over the next few days, the stranger and the daughter spent more time together. At first, it was simple tasks: fetching water, tending the small garden, preparing food. But even these moments became lessons in understanding each other. She taught him the ways of the land, how to gather herbs safely, how to track animals without disturbing their paths, and how to move quietly through the plains. In return, he shared what he knew: how to use tools more efficiently, how to build small traps to protect crops, and how to navigate beyond the hills. They laughed together, stumbled together, and gradually began to see the value in each other's knowledge. The stranger admired her patience and careful attention to detail, while she admired his humility and courage. It was not a love born of haste, but of respect, trust, and shared experience. A connection that could last because it was rooted in understanding. The elder observed them with quiet satisfaction. He knew that a marriage in his culture was not only the joining of two people, but also the joining of hearts, families, and the safety of the tribe. He could see that this young man who had arrived as a stranger had not only proven his courage, but also shown the willingness to learn and adapt. These qualities would make him a partner who could honor his daughter, the family, and the tribe itself. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant hues of orange and gold, the elder invited both of them to sit with him by the fire. He spoke of the past, of the hardships the tribe had endured, and of the strength required to survive in these lands. He spoke of courage, patience, and the bonds that held families and communities together. The stranger listened carefully, and the daughter beside him nodded in agreement, understanding the depth of her father's words. "You have both taken the first steps," the elder said softly. "The road ahead is long, and life will test you in ways you cannot yet see. But if you walk with respect, patience, and courage, your bond will grow strong. You will not only protect each other, but you will also help protect our people. That is the true meaning of trust and honor." The stranger felt a deep sense of purpose. He had come to this land as a traveler, uncertain and alone, yet he had found something more than survival. He had found trust, connection, and a place where his actions mattered. And though the future was unknown, he was ready to walk that path with the daughter, guided by respect, understanding, and the wisdom of the elder. The daughter looked at him quietly, a small smile forming. She did not speak, but her eyes reflected a growing trust and curiosity. She could see that he was sincere, that he valued the lesson she offered, and that he was willing to stand beside her, not above her. Together they watched the firelight dance across the settlement, feeling a quiet unity with the people around them and with the land itself. And so, a bond was formed, not one of haste, but of honor, trust, and shared purpose. The stranger was no longer merely an outsider. He was part of the tribe's story, connected through courage, wisdom, and now, the possibility of a partnership that could strengthen not only himself, but the people who had welcomed him. The first days of dawn in the settlement brought a new rhythm to life. The stranger, who had once been cautious and careful, now moved with quiet confidence among the people. He had earned their trust through courage and wisdom, and now he sought to earn their respect in everyday life. Each morning he rose with the sun, helping with the chores that kept the village functioning. He fetched water from the creek, mended fences, and assisted in preparing food. At first, these tasks felt simple, but he realized that every small act contributed to the safety and comfort of the entire tribe. The daughter walked beside him in these daily routines. She taught him how to plant seeds so that they would grow strong in the dry soil, how to gather herbs for healing and cooking, and how to recognize signs in the sky and land that indicated weather changes or animal movement. He listened carefully, repeating her instructions, practicing until his actions were smooth and respectful. Sometimes he stumbled, spilling water or dropping a bundle of herbs, but she would smile, correcting him gently. They laughed together over these small mistakes, and in these moments the bond between them quietly deepened. The elder observed him from a distance, his expression thoughtful. He could see that the stranger was learning, not just for himself, but for the tribe, and that the daughter was growing more confident in her trust. The elder knew that respect, patience, and shared work were the foundations of a lasting connection. This was not a bond born of haste or desire, but of understanding and honor, a bond that would strengthen over time. As the days passed, the stranger began to take part in larger responsibilities within the settlement. He helped the hunters track animals, not to kill for sport, but to provide food for the tribe. He learned how to move quietly through the plains, watching for signs of danger and understanding the behavior of animals. He shared his knowledge of the land beyond the hills, pointing out hidden paths, water sources, and safe places to hide if needed. The tribe listened attentively, impressed by his insight, and began to see him as someone who could contribute not just strength, but wisdom. The daughter continued to guide him, teaching him the traditions of the tribe, the stories of ancestors, the songs that carried meaning across generations, and the ways of the land that connected people to nature. She explained how each action, no matter how small, was part of a larger balance. The stranger absorbed these lessons with care, recognizing the importance of humility and respect in all interactions. Together they learned from one another, sharing knowledge while building trust. One afternoon, a small crisis arose. A young child had wandered too close to the edge of the hills and could not find the way back. Panic rippled through the settlement as parents called out, searching desperately. The stranger and the daughter, without hesitation, ran toward the child. Using the skills he had learned from both his own experience and from the daughter's guidance, the stranger followed tracks in the dirt, noticing the subtle signs left by the child's movement. The daughter called out softly, her voice carrying across the hills, and soon they found the child safe, clinging to a small tree for balance. When they returned, the parents embraced their child with tears of relief. The tribe watched silently, realizing that the stranger was no longer just a visitor. He was someone who could act decisively, with care and understanding, to protect them. The elder nodded slightly from a distance, his approval quiet but unmistakable. Trust had been earned not just through words, but through consistent, thoughtful action. As time went on, the stranger became deeply involved in the cultural life of the tribe. He attended ceremonies, listened to the stories of elders, and joined in the celebrations that marked important moments in the tribe's life. At first, he observed quietly, learning the proper way to show respect, when to speak and when to remain silent, and how to participate in ways that honored the traditions. Slowly, he became an active participant, his presence a sign of the bridge between his own knowledge and the wisdom of the tribe. Evenings were a special time for the stranger and the daughter. After the work of the day was done, they would sit together by the fire, sharing stories and reflecting on what they had learned. The daughter would tell stories of her childhood, of the lessons her father had taught her, and of the spirits and histories that shaped their people. The stranger shared his own experiences, tales of distant lands, and lessons learned from survival and observation. In these quiet hours, they built a connection that went beyond words, a shared understanding, a respect for one another, and a deepening affection. The elder continued to guide them, speaking occasionally of the responsibilities that came with trust and partnership. "Your bond is not just for yourselves," he said one evening, his eyes steady. "It is for the tribe. Your actions, your decisions, your respect for one another, these teach the younger ones, strengthen the older ones, and guide the people. Remember, honor is shown not only in grand deeds but in the everyday choices we make." The stranger listened carefully, realizing the depth of the responsibility he had accepted. This was not a simple life of survival. It was a life of integration, learning, teaching, and supporting the people who had opened their hearts and homes to him. He understood that every action mattered, and every decision reflected on not just himself, but the community that had trusted him. As seasons changed, so did their connection. They faced challenges together: harsh weather, the need for food during lean periods, and the constant vigilance required to live safely in the plains. Each challenge strengthened their bond. They learned to communicate without words at times, understanding each other's thoughts and intentions through gestures and shared experiences. Their relationship grew naturally, rooted in respect, trust, and the shared responsibility of caring for one another in the tribe. One day, the stranger noticed a small group of travelers passing near the edge of the hills. He recognized the signs: dust clouds, distant movements, voices carried lightly on the wind. He approached the elder quietly, explaining what he had seen and suggesting precautions. The elder nodded, approving the stranger's careful observation. Together they organized a simple, effective strategy to ensure the safety of the settlement. The strangers passed without incident, unaware that the tribe had already prepared and watched with care. Through these experiences, the stranger came to understand the true meaning of community. He had arrived as a lone traveler, uncertain and wary. Now he was part of something larger, a family, a tribe, a people whose survival depended on unity, respect, and shared wisdom. The daughter by his side became not just a partner but a teacher, guide, and companion. Together they celebrated victories, shared burdens, and faced challenges with courage and understanding. The elder often observed the couple from a distance, noting their growth and harmony. He saw the way the stranger had adapted to the ways of the tribe without losing his own identity. He saw the daughter's confidence in her guidance and her growing trust in the stranger's judgment. Most importantly, he saw the respect and care between them, an honest mutual bond that could withstand difficulties and enrich the lives of the tribe. The settlement thrived under this new unity. Children learned from the stranger and the daughter, seeing courage, patience, and kindness in their actions. Hunters and gatherers observed how trust and cooperation made tasks easier and safer. And the elder, satisfied with the balance restored and strengthened, spoke occasionally to the couple, offering wisdom and encouragement. One evening, under a sky full of stars, the stranger and the daughter walked together to the ridge overlooking the settlement. The fires burned softly below, casting warm light on the huts and the people moving quietly among them. The stranger took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. "I never imagined I would find a place like this," he said quietly. The daughter smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars. "Neither did I," she replied. "But we have learned together. We have grown together. And now we are part of something greater than ourselves." They stood silently for a long moment, feeling the wind on their faces, the earth beneath their feet, and the connection to the people and land around them. The stranger realized that this was the life he had been seeking all along, not just survival, but meaning, purpose, and belonging. And with the daughter by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. Days turned into months, and months into years. The stranger and the daughter became inseparable partners. Their lives intertwined with the rhythm of the tribe. They celebrated successes together, comforted each other in times of difficulty, and shared the knowledge and traditions of their people. The elder, watching with quiet pride, knew that his gift, the trust, the bond, the opportunity, had been honored in the truest way. And so the stranger, who had arrived alone and uncertain, became a man of the tribe. He was a protector, a teacher, a learner, and a partner. His story, once separate from the land and people around him, was now woven into the lives of the tribe. Together with the daughter, he helped the settlement grow stronger, their bond a living example of trust, respect, and courage. Through every challenge, every shared lesson, and every quiet moment of understanding, they learned that true belonging was not given lightly, but earned through action, care, and respect. And in this life full of meaning and connection, the stranger found not just survival, but a home, a family, and a future he could honor with every step.